There is only 1 day left to deposit into the EtherFi strategy position on Gearbox in order to qualify for the $70,000 ETHFi campaign happening now. Now you have to deposit between the 12th and the 16th, midnight UTC time. And if you do that and you hold until the 31st, when the snapshot happens, then you will get a share of that $70,000. So let's see if it's worth it. We're also going to look at Ethena, because Ethena yields are really interesting on Gearbox and on other platforms. But today we're talking about Gearbox. So anyways, I'm Steven, the Calculator Guy. Let's talk about Gearbox. So if you don't know what Gearbox is, it's a place where you can leverage things. I mean, if you're familiar with Fluid, or if you're familiar with Summerfi, or Contango, or Sturdy, there are so many of these platforms. Gearbox is one of the really good ones. Gearbox was built during the last bull market. It was one of these really interesting leveraging, make your own strategy tooling sort of systems, and it has evolved into a much more streamlined leveraging protocol. So really good team. They've been around for a long time, and they've certainly had their ups and downs, but they've really gotten the oracles right now. So they use fundamental oracles for the majority of these, and you really need to know that. So a fundamental oracle means instead of getting liquidated by price action, you can see here that let's just say you had a position and you got liquidated if the position fell below, let's do earlier. Let's do this. So let's say you had a position here and you got liquidated if it goes under. You opened it here, you had high leverage, and oh no, boom, it goes under because of spurious price action. Boom, you're liquidated. That will not happen on Gearbox because they use the underlying backing value, which can only ever go up because it's a staking yield. And yes, I am actually saying that. I don't mind saying that because it's true. So you can see right now, wrapped EtherFi ETH is worth 1.038 ETH, or EETH, which is just a wrapped version of ETH, redeemable exactly for 1-to-1 ETH over a period of 7 days. So here it's worth 1.038, and this number will only go up. And so the value of your wrapped EtherFi ETH collateral will only ever go up. It will not go down, even if the price does take a hit due to someone selling on chain. So that's a good thing, right? You can't get liquidated by price action. Amazing. Now let's look at the actual strategy itself. So you can do high leverage, and you might think, oh, well, if you can't get liquidated by price action, why wouldn't I just do max leverage? I'll tell you why. Because when you leverage, you have an interest rate. And that interest rate, if you guys know how money markets work, increases your debt. And when you increase your debt, you lower your health factor, or you increase your LTV. And so if your liquidation LTV is 90% and you start off at 85% and you're gaining 1% every day because your leverage is so high, you only have a few days before liquidation. So I would recommend something closer to 6x leverage or 7x leverage. I don't recommend any specific number actually, because that's really dangerous. But let's just say, for the sake of this, let's go 6.5. That gives you, in my opinion, plenty of days to exit your position and monitor it in the meantime. When you have a leverage position, even if they use fundamental oracles, monitor it daily and look at your health factor and say, okay, am I getting close to 1.02, 1.01? Time to deleverage a bit, or time to add collateral, something like that. So we're going to use 6.5 for the sake of this. I'm also going to be using incredibly bearish assumptions for points. Why? Because we've been super burnt on Eigenlayer. We were super burnt on Mode. Points right now are sort of in a low. Yes, we're getting a lot of hype back into the markets. Some of the vibes are coming back, if that means anything. I think the GME and AMC meme stuff will kind of flow back into DeFi like it did during DeFi summer. Let's hope, God willing. And that should be a lot of fun for a lot of us. Also, election year, let's just see some quantitative easing or something, some dovish signs. Nevertheless, I'm using very, very bearish assumptions. So here I'm using an EtherFi point value of 0.00029, 4 zeros 29. And I'm also using a 6 cent Eigenlayer point. And the way I got that is effectively saying we know, well, we don't know. Season 2 maybe ends mid-June, that might be what the snapshot is. There's going to be 3 seasons, and we know it's going to be done by September 31st. So if there's 3 seasons, we have 2 left. And if we just, cut the last 2, the time between the first snapshot and the last date, September 31st, in half, we end up in mid-June. So that's where we're using a snapshot date. Based off that assumption and the current FDV of Eigen, we get something around 6 cents. Now, hey, maybe we get a really, really bullish DeFi summer. That would be amazing. Maybe EigenLayer finally is worth what it should be and is more than 10 billion. Like EigenLayer and EtherFi being the same FDV makes no sense, but there's get some BDs over at EigenLayer. Anyways, we're using bearish assumptions for the reasons I stated before. There is an LRT multiplier here of 2. I'm going with 6.5x leverage. I'm saying we're going to end the strategy, let's just say, on 6-1. Let's just say you want to farm the airdrop, the special event, ETHFi, and that's it. So let's also say that you start today because it's the last day. So let's do 5:15 because most of you are probably in the future or seeing this video on the 15th. I'm recording it right now on the 14th. I think that they're going to have 11 million. They hit their goal of 10 million and they only have 1 day left. I think they'll get to 11, maybe even 12 million. Let's go 12 million. Let's be bullish on their campaign. Okay, so that means that just by these incentives, there's an additional 13% in real actual EtherFi yield you will be paid out at the end of this campaign. That's great. So your leveraged APR on this, let's say leverage EtherFi APR is 86.5% at 6.5x leverage. That's pretty good. Now, do know that you are paying 91% to borrow. Let's make sure these borrow rates are right. Go over here, 16.67. Go back over here, 16.67. Let's go change that. So your effective real APR is -5%. What does that mean? It means that even though you are getting paid 85% in ETHFi, and you can use that to pay down your debt or whatever, you are still losing on the interest, and you're banking on EigenLayer points and EtherFi points in order to make your strategy profitable overall in the long run, in the long term. So that is one thing to consider. You're effectively like doing this strategy. You're getting more or less free-ish points for the remainder of this event. And yeah, so let's just dive in, right? So I'm saying 2x point multiplier, Barnes rate 16, roughly 17%. ETH value is fluctuating. LRT principal, let's just say you're depositing 1 ETH, but we're probably going to be doing 10, doesn't really matter. Base LRT APR, I mean, it's really like 2.5, but that's not going to be a huge difference. Where am I getting this total 160% APR from? Well, it is from the WeETH revenue. So this is the yield you'll get from the value accrual of wrapped EtherFi ETH, the point revenue. So this comes from, EigenLayer, assuming this really bearish 6 cents, $1,400 in airdrop, and then the LRT, which you will get at the end of June. We know when the end date is there. That's kind of cool. So we know that season 2 EtherFi ends at the end of June. So maybe $678 on that, plus an additional however many dollars you get from this, 85%. I should have that in there. But your effective total APR with all of these things considered from now until the end of the month should be 159% given these assumptions. So how do you open up a strategy? It's super simple. One thing you need to know is you have to borrow at least 25 ETH to open a position, which means your minimum principal, we can actually do a little bit of math here. Your minimum principal has to be min principal. It's a pretty easy formula, is leverage minus 1 divided by 25. So equals whatever this is, minus 1, or is it 25 divided by that? Yeah, it's 25 divided by that. So 25 divided by that. So let's just say your leverage is, how is it negative? Did I do subtract? No, 25, yeah. So your minimum principal, if you're doing 6x leverage, has to be 5, right? Because then you're borrowing 25. If you're doing 7x leverage, which is a little bit risky, then your minimum principal is 4.16. So hopefully this makes sense. This way you can sort of see how much you need. Yes, this is not a strategy that really behooves really small accounts, but it's ETH mainnet. Most people on ETH mainnet aren't doing small things anyways. And So this event will close on midnight tomorrow. So do be like midnight technically on the 16th, but end of day tomorrow. So that's it. That's the EtherFi strategy in a nutshell. I think it's a nice short-term strategy to farm some real actual yield while getting, or another way of thinking about it is getting really, really cheap points over the next, let's just say 16 days. Now, do be mindful of entry and exit slippage. Luckily, Wrapped EtherFi ETH is a very liquid pair. So, there's not going to be a lot of slippage, and you can also adjust your slippage. I adjusted mine from, I think it was like 0.1 to 0.05. I want very, very little bit of slippage here, and it's liquid, so you can do that. You can even do 0.001 and see if your transaction goes through. Gas has been single digit lately, so really you should be able to do that. And if it fails, you're only going to lose like $10. So there you go. Pretty simple, pretty easy to understand. And if you want to look at your health factor, if it's 1.082, what that means is that basically you will be you have 8.2% interest to get. So if your interest rate when leveraged is 91%, you can just say, okay, well, what is, let's just say 8.2%. That is divided by 91. That is, whatever that is a fraction. Let's make that a decimal. And then do that times 365. So effectively you have 32 days before you start to be at risk of liquidation. That is more than the campaign goes for. So you are at as long as the interest rate stays the same, doesn't go crazy high, you are not at risk of liquidation throughout this event. That's kind of cool. Let's look at some other strategies. So I was looking at Kelp as well. Why? Because their airdrop is going to be at the end of next month. And so this is a season 1 airdrop. They have told me it's going to be an ambitious airdrop. I am holding my breath I'm not holding my breath because, a lot of these protocols have sort of promised the moon and, we've been in a rough 2 months. So if you want to do this, 20.62%, and I've done a little bit of my own calculations on what I think this might look like. So let's go back over to Gearbox. Let's go to this. Yep, this is right. This is my point estimation. You might say, well, how did you get that? I'll tell you how. This is actually for this, it's Kelp. This is the current points. I've added an additional 100 billion just to say in a month, maybe we'll get a whole other 20%. So that's how I get my point value. So I'm saying FDV on Kelp is going to be 1 billion. I hope it's 1 billion. Enzo right now is less than that. I mean, we could do, I hate to do it, but we could do 700,000 and do a lower point value. So let's do that. Let's just, like I said, let's be bearish. And so if that's the case, 2x multiplier, good, leverage 6.5, that's right. We can actually look at DeFi, make sure their point multiplier is just 2. I think Gearbox is on here. Gearbox is, 2x. So that is correct. Let's go over to this again. Same eigenpoint estimate, days out. I'm saying strategy ends at the end of next month because that's when the airdrop is supposed to be. Leverage 6.5. Annualized return here is a better better points only annualized return than here. So this is 72% with a total with that ETHFi of 159. Here it's 110. So if you're just going for points, this seems to be a little bit better because you will get a better points-based return. But if you're looking for better overall return, this would be a better strategy here. Now, let's go to the really interesting stuff, the Athena. Let's just say you're tired of Delta exposure. You're no longer super bullish. You're in stable coins and you're looking for some good SUSDE and USDE yields. Well, luckily Gearbox has some strategies for you, which is kind of cool. So they give, 20, what are they called? Sats, which is not really a sat because a sat is a Satoshi, but they give 20 sats per day for USDE per dollar, and they give 5 sats per day per dollar for SUSDE. So I've estimated these point values given the current, a lot of calculations went into this, but I've estimated these sat values based off of assumed growth by next airdrop. And then FDV is a function of that. Anyways, we ended up with these numbers, trying to be a little bit bearish here as well. So let's just say that the strategy end date is on the 2nd of September, which is, that's kind of when they've hinted at their airdrop being. I think they've actually said that for sure. Don't quote me on that. And so borrow interest rate for USDE, borrow rate for USDE, and then I have a checkbox so you can switch between them and see what the different rates are. You can see there's a big difference in annualized return here. However, and this is really important, in this, if you're using SUSDE, then your staking yield, your collateral is increasing faster than your interest is rising. So this is actually just a net positive strategy, period. Like you don't even have to have points for you to have a positive return. Granted, it's not like a super high return. This is what, $1,000, $800 difference on a principal of $10,000. So $800 over 111 days. Not a remarkably high APR. It's like 7% or something. But so you're getting 7% plus you're getting a bunch of points. So if you want to get these points and not like be losing principal, this is pretty good. 111% on stablecoins until September. 4 months of 110% on stables. That's pretty flippin' good. Now, if you wanted to be a points maxi, like a Sats maxi, use USDE. The borrow interest rate there is 11%. Let's just check these to make sure it's still accurate. Leverage points. Let's go to boom. And so if I wanted to do $10,000, and I think I have 6.5 here as well. Though here I would increase the leverage because I think, I know that my SUSD is gaining in value faster than my interest. Now, they're not. I don't think they're using a fundamental oracle for here. So you could be hit by a spurious market event. So maybe don't go this high. Maybe you go 8 and 11.14%. So let's go back over here. 11.14%. This is SUSD, so I'm going to check this box. And what are we getting? We're getting in the staking yield. Do I have that in here? USD staking rate is actually higher than this. USD staking rate was 14% last I checked. So that gives you 128%, which is actually quite impressive. So 128%. And then let's go check USDE. So here we'll go USDE. So you're not getting any staking yield. That is the big difference here. And so I wouldn't necessarily do as high a leverage. Oh wait, actually we didn't change leverage. Let's go over here. Let's do, I had 9x leverage. So this was max leverage. Let's do 8, 115, still pretty reasonable. And now I do 7 leverage probably for USDE. I'm saying 17%. This is saying 17.22. So I'm close, 17.22. And we're getting 182% annualized. So those are some interesting strategies that I just thought you guys might be fascinated by. Full disclosure, I am an ambassador with Gearbox, so you should know that I'm like a biased person. I did a big write-up on this on Twitter on these like strategies, specifically the like EtherFi one. I do only work with protocols that I use and that I like. So try not to shill anything that I wouldn't use myself. And if you so that's it. Thank you guys for watching. If you want like a cutting edge research on strategies as they come out, all of these different leverage protocols, plus actual real yield that's not dependent on points, join the DeFi Dojo Discord. We're talking about these things all the time. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful rest of your day.